So last video we just kind of got the title space cleaned up and refined and ready to go. In this video what we're going to do is continue with the tracing in order to flush out the rough copy, right? So at this point you know, you can continue working on the dot paper for a rough copy, or you can continue to work on a piece of blank paper. You can see that I've done a little bit of cleaning up here in terms of the title. I had that on a bit of an angle and decided to go a little bit more straight across overall. But I think for this video, right, in terms of rough work, I'm going to just continue to work on this particular piece here. Okay, so in panel 3, I have a clock, a digital clock that I'm wanting to create. And I have found some digital text here that I'm going to be using. I want to show that it's really early in the morning. So I'm going to start just kind of playing around with some of the numbers. Right? But again, I want to be utilizing some of the skills that I have with the perspective that we had learned earlier. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time kind of creating a clock face that has some buttons and other details, just in order to kind of make this a little bit more visually interesting instead of just inserting some numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and start to kind of sketch out the clock. Okay, so now that I kind of have the basics of the clock sketched in, I'm going to start playing around with some of the numbers. I'm going to put in some rough guidelines here in order to help me kind of make sure that the height of the numbers is consistent, as well as starting to think about sort of the spacing of each of the numbers. As we can see from the visual research that I have here, is that the spacing is fairly consistent, and they're kind of made up in kind of chunked lines. So I'm going to have a little bit of more space, right? And the colon here are kind of like diamonds, so I'm going to put in some diamonds. Those ones are fairly straightforward in order to create the spacing between. And again, looking at spacing from one side to the other, right? And my numbers are almost 2 spaces wide, and again, as they get closer, they need to get a little bit wider, thinking about that lesson that we did with the very first perspective drawing. Right, so I want to create a time that is at around 6 a.m., just before 6. So there's going to be no digit in this particular space, all right, but I've included it in order to get the spacing fairly accurate. Right, and then I'm going to start going through and creating the numbers here. Right, again, this is fairly rough. We're going to be working on refining these numbers a little bit later as we go through. So we got 5. Right, I'm going to try and get this in again. I'm going to say 5. Let's say 5. What time? 5. Let's say 40. Let's say 47. Okay, so I'm going to just get some variety here. So my 4. I'm going to draw this one in. Right, again, this isn't going to be perfect right now because I am 547, so this is going to come down like this time, because I'm going to be working on developing a good copy. Right, the main purpose here is to kind of get a sense of what this is going to look like. Right, so there's a fair amount of detail in each one, but it's not over the top either. But we're again blocking things out so there's a clear idea of what is going to be happening. And then down in the last one, I want to have kind of this idea was kind of interesting for me, and the style is somewhat consistent with what I was looking for overall. So I'm probably going to just be focusing on a smaller part, again using this as a visual reference in order to kind of help me out here. I've got the keys. Actually, look at the edge of the computer keyboard coming down and across like so, and we've got the fingers. I'm going to bring this down a little bit further. Right, again, just kind of using this as a bit of a guide, and the finger comes up to the knuckle, and then it's going to kind of come across. I'm going to create like a flat surface there for where the finger's actually kind of touching. All right, we have the joint. And we'll see the other finger kind of, or the thumb kind of hiding in it behind here. All right, this probably should have actually been a little bit smaller. All right, because it's farther back. So I'm kind of blocking in sort of where the keys are going to be located, and trying to make sure that the line across the back for the back keys is parallel to the edge, right? And then as these lines come in this way, they start to get a little bit smaller. So now I'm going to start using those guides to block in. I'm going to have some keys kind of coming down this way as well, some guidelines in order to help me out. Right, and as I'm starting to go here, I'm pressing a little bit harder as I'm getting more confident with where I want these lines to actually end up being. Right, and again, adding some of those perspectival elements, just the edges of those keys, just to kind of help make it look a little bit more visual. Okay, so again, we're just cleaning these up, adding in some small details, and keeping in mind that this is a preliminary, right? Again, these are really, really, really rough, right? And there's a significant difference between this rough draft and this rough draft, right? So we may need to kind of go through, work really, really rough at first, and then kind of come back as a secondary level just to kind of clean this up, right? But the main idea here is that we're starting to get a sense of what the overall composition is going to look like, right? And we'll get more confident lines happening as we kind of go through this process of getting everything kind of figured out. Okay? So as long as it's clear as to what is kind of happening in each of the different panels for your first page, you're all good. Right? So this, I would say, would be a solid high level 3, low level 4. If you're wanting to make sure that you're refining it and you've got a really clear idea of where you're going, I would recommend that you continue to work on an additional layer of refinement just to keep going, and that's going to make it easier as you move into the good copy. So we're getting there, guys. It's looking really good. Continuing to impress me as I see the work coming in. So congratulations. I'm looking forward to seeing your first page. Good luck.